Protagonists. These are the characters in a story that we follow the most, the ones that have the most significant influence on the plot. So, why are we talking about protagonists? Well, the reason for this is how some view one of the main protagonists of World Trigger, Mikumo Osamu. A common complaint about World Trigger is that one of the main characters, Mikumo Osamu, despite how long World Trigger has been going on, is still considered to be the weakest. By himself, he isn't as skilled in combat as most others. His Tryon value is barely high enough to get accepted into Border, which is 2, and to put that into perspective, the Tryon value for people who can't become a combatant in Border is 1. This severely limits his combat potential even more. Examples of this are when your Tryon amount is high, such as when using a gun or trigger, allowing you to fire more bullets at a time, as well as being more powerful. Another example is that when Tryon bodies are damaged in certain areas, they leak large amounts of Tryon. If you have a big enough Tryon level, you can buy yourself precious time to either finish the fight or if possible patch the wound, but if your Tryon amount is low, then you have less time. His combat skills aren't great either, though not for lack of trying. He is putting in the work to make himself stronger through training, the basic fundamentals. He is not adept to combat, as he isn't very athletic either, as he has been a trainee at the beginning of the series. Whenever he gets into one-on-one fights, he is usually the one who loses, with one of his standout moments early in the series being losing 24 fights in a row and scoring a tie on the 25th try. Even when he trained under more experienced agents, he still couldn't improve enough to fight as well as his teammates. All of these factors would create the image of Osamu being incompetent in a fight, but that's where I believe some get it wrong about Osamu. Despite being weak, he doesn't take it all lying down. But before we get there, I first need to explain why Osamu is weak in the story. As explained, he isn't very skilled and his Tryon amount isn't very high, but those aren't the only factors. A big factor in all of this is time. At the beginning of the series, Osamu was a C-rank agent, a trainee. When Osamu was allowed to be promoted to B rank, he was at first going to turn it down, but because he wanted to reach his goal as soon as possible, he accepted. It is even stated in the series and by the other agents that Osamu can get stronger both in skill and his Tryon amount, but because he doesn't have the time to wait for self-improvement, he is trying to find ways to bypass all the time that the usual methods would take. With everything being said, it should be pretty clear that this series has no shortcuts to improvement. The fact that Osamu is weak is very obvious to him, which is why later on, when he has made friends in Border, he asked him to help train him by giving him more advanced lessons than just the basics. After receiving his training, he had another rank war match to fight against some of the top B-rank agents that used to be A-rank themselves. In this fight, Osamu was taken out very early on in the fight due to his own error of trying to fight instead of trying to run while using Bagworm to hide himself on radar. Osamu pursued his training believing it would benefit the team, but in reality it was more for himself, to try not to feel like a burden, but in doing so, stopped doing what made him competent in the first place. Osamu takes the loss, and it's a bitter pill for him to swallow, especially after all of his training. After Osamu bailed out, one of the agents says that it takes more than a week for training to bear fruit. This agent was Kitora. This loss in particular really shows how Osamu went the wrong way in trying to rectify his own weakness, because his solution is very arrogant of him. The reason for my saying this is because he expected the special training to be his golden ticket for him to get stronger, but what he forgot to take into consideration is everyone else. Every Border agent works to improve themselves, not just him. Even if he does get advanced training from A-rank agents, it's still training at the end of the day. No matter the training, expecting it to have immediate results is the error that Osamu made in choosing this method. it simply isn't fast enough to yield the results he wants for his team, and that is the key word: team. Osamu realized that instead of focusing on himself, he should start finding ways to improve the team as a whole. The one that let Osamu know this was Kazama. We are now going to talk about the two people who helped Osamu the most with this issue, Kitora and Sōya Kazama. After this loss, Osamu asked another agent who had similar issues to him, mainly his low Tryon levels, for help. This person was Kitora, an A-rank agent who had low levels of Tryon. Before she helps Osamu, Kitora chastises him for straying from his main goal. Osamu distracted himself by focusing on himself when his thought process should have been on the team. Asking her for help, she shows him a trigger that we've seen sporadically throughout the series, but this is the first time it's been given the spotlight: Spider. This trigger is low-costing. It appears as a small Tryon cube with two arrow-shaped hooks in the middle of opposite edges. When activated, these hooks propel themselves out, hooking themselves into whatever they hit with force, making long wires. Osamu used this trigger to help out his team's ace, Yuma Kuga, due to Yuma's high mobility. Osamu sets up wire zones. These zones are littered with spider wires everywhere so that Yuma can use them to increase his speed and mobility while also hindering the enemy. Though this approach doesn't make him stronger in the traditional sense, it helps increase the team's strength by helping the whole team, as this strategy is brand new and no one else has done this before. With this new strategy, they take a major lead in their next Rank Wars match. Osamu exemplifies World Trigger's theme of not surpassing or breaking one's limits, but working within those limits to come up with creative solutions and using everything you have to find an advantage. A prominent example is during his fight against Kazama, where the A-rank agent challenges Osamu to a fight in a training room. His reason for challenging Osamu is that another agent named Jin made a big sacrifice for Osamu and his friends. He wondered why Jin would do this, and sought his answer by fighting Osamu. Osamu had lost to him 24 times in a row, even though he was trying to come up with a counter during those first 24 fights, using only what he had. It was all but fruitless. As Kazama was about to leave, still wondering why Jin made his sacrifice, he ends up informing Mikumo of what Jin had done for him, and so he requests one more fight with Kazama. Seeing his determination, Kazama accepted. In this fight, Osamu remembers what his mentor Karasuma taught him, but the most important part we are going to focus on is using what you have, what the others have, consider both sides' goals, the field conditions, positions of allies, use all the elements, and control the opponent's movements. He first considered his opponent's trigger, Chameleon, to turn invisible, but also the downside of being unable to use other triggers when it's in use. To counter this, he uses his current field conditions, the training room's infinite Tryon, to create a big amount of floating Tryon bullets that force Kazama to abandon his invisibility. This is only part of the solution, as even without Chameleon, Kazama is a high-ranked attacker and uses Scorpion to destroy the floating bullets in front of him to clear a path to Osamu. This is what Osamu wanted, because even though the bullets are doing little to stop his charge, he is still surrounded by them, and so he can't do a quick dodge in a completely different direction, except from the path that he created. Though Kazama can see where exactly Osamu will fire due to his inexperience, and therefore can make a quick small motion to dodge the shot, Osamu knows this and goes for a guaranteed hit instead by using his Ray Gust optional trigger, Thrust, to propel himself forward with the Ray Gust in shield mode to pin Kazama to the wall, and then shapes the Ray Gust into a dome to prevent Kazama from dodging, and opens a small opening where he launches his attack at point blank range. Though Kazama countered the attack enough to make the fight a draw, this fight really shows off Osamu's character. Even after the fight, Kazama points out that Osamu is very weak, but he knows this fact and uses both wisdom and creativity to outmaneuver and read his opponents. This would later be reinforced when he would watch the match where Osamu's team suffered their first loss. After the loss, he points out the flaw that Osamu had with his solution. It was an uncertain factor, and something that everyone at Border was already doing. His words of advice after pointing out this flaw were for Mikumo to do his job as his team's captain. These words are the ones that start Mikumo to get into the mindset that he had when he fought Kazama, to use everything he has, much like how he used the training room's infinite try-on. He uses his connections again, which most Asians don't have, to find an advantage. This is what separates Osamu from most other shonen protagonists. Take for example characters like Midoriya from My Hero Academia and Asta from Black Clover. At the start of the series they had disadvantages, like Osamu's low try-on level, Asta with no magic, and Midoriya with no quirk. But as their stories went on, Deku got a quirk and Asta got anti-magic, fairly early on in their series. As for Osamu, he doesn't get anything like that. He doesn't get a sudden boost to his try-on level, or even a special trigger, like the black triggers in the series. For Asta, he trained hard to gain strength, and Deku also needed to use his new quirk creatively since his body had limitations. But Osamu still has his weakness, and even though he is better than where he started at the beginning, it isn't by that much. However, Osamu, though himself doesn't have a new power, he does get something else that helps him greatly, and that is the people around him. Of course, this is nothing new. Most shonen manga, the main character is in a group of friends and allies, but the difference here is that Osamu's power is his team. He chooses a strategy and how he chooses which teammate does what. But this does not take away any agency from his teammates. Far from it actually. After all, his strategies couldn't work unless they were with his team. The most prominent example of this is in the rank war the team had after their first loss, and when Osamu gained the idea to use the spider trigger. To not spoil too much, I'll go over how their strategy works with Spider. To start off, Osamu will go around the map using Bagworm to hide himself from radar and deploy Spider to set up wire zones. These zones are meant to help boost Yuma by giving him greater maneuverability while also hindering the opponents. Osamu also puts in different colored wires to trick the eye, as the color that stands out the most will immediately be noticed, leaving the most muted colored wires hidden. When someone trips up on the wires, Chika will snipe them with lightning, a sniper with the fastest speed stat, and uses a lead bullet to weigh down and hinder whoever gets hit, as shields can't stop lead bullets. This strategy was only possible because of how agile and experienced Kuge is to use the wires effectively, and Chika for having large amounts of try-on to use lead bullets consistently, as they are taxing. I hope this video clears up any misconceptions about Osamu as a main character. If this type of main character isn't for you, I'm not gonna force you to like him. I just want to make sure that everyone understands what kind of show World Trigger is, and why Osamu worked for it. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If there are any things you would like me to discuss about World Trigger, please leave a comment down below. Make sure to like and subscribe so that I can keep making these videos for you all. I hope you have a great day.